Hello, and I think I'm live now. Welcome to Celerity Technology. Today I'm going to be doing a demonstration of how I solder and some of my RGB DACs. I'm also going to be doing some tests on it. Um, I'm going to do my best to try to be interactive as I can. I do kind of ADD out on some stuff. So right here, excuse the little background noise, I have a very squeaky chair. So right here I have what's called as a test jig. So this is what I use for testing my board to see, if everything's working. This is how they come shipped to me. Well, more like this. I get a pouch right here, an anti-static bag, and just cut it open. And they usually send me two boards that are connected to each other. So I'm just going to break them apart like that. I'll get my good old anti-static just in case. And this is how they come. They usually come with a little piece, two pieces attached to it usually. So I just kind of break that off. And as you can see, these are not fully assembled. That's due to I wanted to get these out soon, and I was still trying to source some headers for it, and so I decided to make the call just to roll out headers, and I would solder them on myself. And it was also another idea behind it is I wanted to make two different types, one with kind of a fan-like connector. That way you could use Thermaltake RGB fittings, the first generation, and plug them into this, and that way you could plug them in, and you didn't need it to make an adapter cable or something. But if my second batch, I might just I'm going to have all the headers already soldered on, and that way I have to do less work. Additionally, so let's move this out of the way. Toss this. So right here I have what's called a test jig, and this is the test jig right here. And basically it's an old board, or one free board that I had, and the idea is instead of plugging all the connectors in to test it that way, this uses what's called like a bed of nails or pogo, and there's these little pins right here that have a little spring on it, and I don't know how well you guys can see that. So you can just press these in, and that way, if there's anything that's uneven, the springs will kind of even it out. And so the way I do it is, this might not be the best way, but it's the best solution I have right now. So what I do is I have this little Lighting No Pro attached to Corsair IQ, and I have this test pattern connected, so it blinks through the primary colors off and on, as well as some additional colors as well, just to test it, and white. And so what I do is I kind of put this on carefully, and I hold it down. So it started in green, and I'll just verify that, yeah, green. So I know that this board works. So I'll test another board, and I was kind of impressed with how old these boards came out in terms of, I think I've only had a couple of them actually not be 100%. I think maybe 2 boards total, and that's better. That's all done with a pick and place machine. And as you can see, when I remove the boards, the signal stops, and it just maintains the last color. And I cover this up because it's kind of annoying to look at this, for a few minutes. And I'm only doing 4 boards. Normally I try to do 20 or so, because setup takes a while and it's annoying to have to do it. So just go through a few different colors, and then I'm happy with it, so I set it down, and now I'm going to get the last board. So the only thing that this doesn't test is the fuses, which I'll have to test separately after this. Theoretically I should have it test the fuses as well, but because I use a solder jumper for the 12 volt to 5 volt, that ends up being kind of a hindrance on testing. So my next boards I probably will replace the solder jumper for regular jumper and let the users select which one, which voltage they want, as well as I'm going to just use these standard RGB 90-degree headers for both 5-volt and 12-volt, and you can actually buy the adapter cables, which I didn't find them at the time. I just assumed that people would have them custom made, and I wanted to avoid that, but since Barrow makes them, I let that strip on. You can easily get it made. So let me see, do I have anybody actually? I wonder if I have anybody following this. So just set it down there, apply some pressure, and it runs through everything. It's much easier than going through. And when I'm doing this, I'm normally doing like 20, but I'm doing just 4 of them, just kind of for demonstration purposes. So everything kind of checked out for that. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I guess we'll start to solder. And I'll shut this off. And I do like to kind of tape everything down, and I actually did hot glue this bed of nail tester right here. That way I can just put it away, and then and takes a second to set up. So the quicker the setup and jigs you make, it makes it a lot easier for trying to do mass production. But I'll probably will do the testings. I'll probably redesign the jig for the next batch. Yeah, that's how I test them. So then I also made another jig right here, and this is my soldering jig, and so I face it towards you guys. So the basic idea is trying to put all these together and manually and do it over and over again. You want to make it as quick as you can, especially if you're doing a large amount. And I kind of already, to save you guys some pain, I've already put the little couplers on here, so that way you don't have to do it. I also disabled autofocus, so if it's autofocus, I am sorry. It goes nuts a lot of times. So what I do is I first put in all the little headers right there, and the next thing I do is I get a board, and then I lay it right on top, and I pull my solder over here. And this is going to be an interesting way to solder, but I'm trying to do it so you guys can see it. I don't know if you guys have enough light. So, is there enough light over there? Let's see here. Let me see if we can pull additional light over here. A little better. Yes, the black PCB does make it a little harder to see. So right here I'm using what's called lead-free solder, and this is to make sure it's compliant. I also switch out my tip. So now I'm going to power on my soldering iron and show you guys how I do this. I mean, just have to wait for it to heat up. I wonder if Shammy's here. You there, Shammy? Let's see. I won't be doing much typing, but I could do some talking. Again, I'm not like a huge YouTuber or anything, and I really didn't publicize this, but so what I do is I just go to one side with a soldering iron. Well, first I kind of clean it off with, I go to one side. Hopefully you guys can see it. Another good thing to do is actually use my, hopefully this is not blocking. Hopefully that's not too loud. So, this helps soak up the fumes. This is just a 120mm fan with some active charcoal filters that I cut to size and just put it around. It's a Delta fan, so it has the power. So let's see if I can get this from here. That one did not want to. I'll set my nerd goggles so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. This is an odd angle to solder with. Hopefully somebody's here to give me feedback on how well they can see it. Okay, this fell a little bit. And of course, am I being an idiot or not? Let's see. Which way is this going? Okay, so I did have it the right way, just felt different. So just go through each one. And again, if you can't see this, please give me a holler or tell me if you can't see it, so I'm quit my belly aching. So again, the jigs make it a lot easier because you're just plugging something existing into it and soldering, and hopefully my hand's not in the way. So I go through each pin, solder it. Another way you can tell this is lead free because it's not shiny like lead it is. And lead solder is a lot easier to solder. It has a lower melting temperature, and it also just seems to work better, especially with the rosin core solder. And so that one's all done. Of course, I got that stuck. Usually these don't really stick that well. These connectors actually do have a finite life. Connectors like this, I mean, they're not meant to be plugged in and out. So the good news is, hopefully, this will loosen. Starts to loosen as I solder more and more. Okay, so let's get a few more here. Plug them in. Again, if you guys have any questions, this is to see if I can multitask, which usually most of my friends and my wife say I can't. Okay, board 2. So I'm only going to do 3 of these type of boards, the 12-volt boards, and then I'm going to show you a 5-volt. Usually kind of get faster as I go, but again the angle is kind of less than optimal, but so my next set of boards, I won't be doing this. Planning on ordering quite a few more if I do it. It's kind of, doing this stuff is a hobby of mine, and I actually did it because I wanted to control my thermal take fittings. But it does take a bit of time, and then, you know, I think I've only had 2 boards and had issues in the field, and both of them were actually because of the fuses. So that's why I'm going to double check the fuses, because They could have been not working from the start, and the way I tested them bypassed them originally. So done with that one. Quickly inspect this. Okay, and the last 12-volt board, and what really determines the voltage on these is, you know, just a solder jumper, and I'll show you where that is. So just plug these in. And again, I already attached the little couplers to them because I'll let you guys use your imagination, but you don't really need to see that, I guess. So apparently I have 4 people viewing this. I bet 1 or 2 of them is me. So okay, yeah, and sometimes planting my elbows gives me more support. Move this out of the way. Yeah, it's kind of a confined area. So just going between each one, and I do touch one side of the pad and the pin, and then I come from the other side, and I'll try to like touch the iron just briefly, and then kind of pull the solder to the other side of the board, so that way I get the solder on the pad and not on the and so I don't get the solder just on the iron. So a mistake people do a lot of times is they try to put solder on the iron, and what that does is it burns off. If you see that stuff flowing, that's actually flux that's burning off. So the flux is what cleans what cleans both the pad and also the header that I'm using. And you can see some of that splash up a little bit on here, and you can see the fumes going out. I try not to breathe them in. That's one reason why I have this little fan here. Okay. So, one there. Stupid angle. Okay. So that's how I do the 12 volt. The 5 volt, I have multiple jigs on this. What's the best way to do this? So I like to also keep the fan closer to what I'm soldering, but if I do it as close as I normally do, then unfortunately you guys won't see it. So I get these other connectors that I have right here, and I just set them into place inside of this little other part of the jig. And you know, this does not look pretty, but I mean, that's not the point. It's there to be, it's a tool. And you know, probably after, I think we've sold about or I think I've assembled about 80 boards, and we initially ordered 100, and so let's see if I can do this. No, I can't. Maybe that's probably good enough. If worst case, I'll just follow my hand. So these are square pins. The pins on these are rounded, so these will be very loose if you put them into the Thermaltake fan-like RGB connectors. And these are only, again, Thermaltake likes to switch things around quite a bit. So the first gen Thermaltake RGB fittings came with a manual controller, and that's one reason why I developed this board, and that's called solder bridge. Too much solder. It's just, again, not the easiest way to solder when you're trying to do it for a computer. fix that. This is actually a bit more difficult to solder because it's further away from me. Probably. And if I'm in the way. Oh yeah, you can see my nerd goggles. Huh. Oops. Wow, this is not an easy way to do this. Nice thing about the solder mask, it's like hot butter for this. I mean, slides around like Teflon. It's just so solder doesn't stick to it, which is nice. So you can just scratch it off. A lot of this is just partially how I'm doing it. A weird angle. Is this in focus? Yeah, I think it is. I'll do this a little bit easier. Soldering this way. It's kind of like when you're trying to put a tie on somebody that doesn't know how to tie a tie. It's just like it's kind of uncomfortable, and you have to try to figure out, what's the best way to do this. And kind of uncomfortable, and you have to try to
Wow, is that out of focus?
figure out, what's the best way to do this.
Out of focus the whole time. Sorry, guys.
Kind of uncomfortable, and you have to try to
Wow, is that out of focus?
figure out, what's the best way to do this.
Out of focus the whole time. Sorry, guys.
Kind of uncomfortable, and you have to try to
Wow, is that out of focus?
figure out, what's the best way to do this.
Out of focus the whole time. I'm just. Sorry, guys.
Kind of uncomfortable, and you have to try to
Wow, is that out of focus?
figure out, what's the best way to do this.
Out of focus the whole time. I'm just. Sorry, guys.
Kind of uncomfortable, and you have to try to
Wow, is that out of focus?
figure out,
Hopefully
what's
this
the
isn't
best way
too
to do
bad.
this.
Out of focus the whole time.
Quality. Else I'm gonna have to throw this Brio against the wall. Yeah, it's called therapy. Get annoyed at something, just throw it. And I don't do
Sorry,
that.
guys.
Yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable, and you have to try to with the camera, that is.
Okay,
Yeah,
hopefully
what's
this
the
isn't
best way
too
to do
bad.
this.
Out of focus the whole time.
Quality. Else I'm gonna have to throw this Brio against the wall. Yeah, it's called therapy. Get annoyed at something, just throw it. And I don't do
Sorry,
that.
guys.
Yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable, and you have to try to
Solder all the headers.
with the camera, that is.
Okay,
Yeah,
hopefully
what's
this
the
isn't
best way
too
to do
bad.
this.
Out of focus the whole time.
Quality. Else I'm gonna have to throw this Brio against the wall. That's it. Yeah, it's called therapy. Get annoyed at something, just throw it. With alcohol. And so that's how I solder all the headers onto it.
Yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable when you have to try to
solder all the headers
put the camera, that is.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
weird.
that's
Too
what it
bad.
is.
That'll focus on that quality. Else I'm gonna have to throw this Brio against the wall.
That's it.
Yeah, it's called therapy. Get annoyed, something just needs to with alcohol. And so that's how I solder all the headers onto it.
Yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable when you have to try to
solder all the headers
put the camera, that is.
Okay,
Yeah,
so weird.
that's
Too
what it
bad.
is.
That'll focus on that quality. Else I'm gonna have to throw this Brio against the wall.
That's it.
Yeah, it's called therapy. Get annoyed, something just needs to with alcohol. And so that's how I solder all the headers onto it.
Yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable when you have to try to
solder all the headers
put the camera, that is.
Okay,
Yeah,
so weird.
that's
Too
what it
bad.
is.
That'll focus on that quality. Else I'm gonna have to throw this Brio against the wall.
That's it.
Yeah, it's called therapy. Get annoyed, something just needs to with alcohol. And so that's how I solder all the headers onto it.
Yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable when you have to try to
solder all the headers
put the camera, that is.
Okay,
Yeah,
so weird.
that's
Too
what it
bad.
is.
That'll focus on that quality. Else I'm gonna have to throw this Brio against the wall.
That's it.
Streaming and watching at the same time. Okay, I don't know. I changed the resolution and resized the window, so hopefully that helps. Okay, so I'm finished with these boards. The next step is to connect the last headers, which this is what this last jig is for. And this one actually is more challenging in the way that, yeah, I wish I cut this down. Cut this down, so let's see here. Okay. So these are for the addressable on the motherboard RGB headers. Those, the power and the Corsair headers were already soldered on, and again, it's just a change in the the design was fully finalized when I said it. You know, I'll just go send these to production. I wanted to get them done sooner before later, and the idea was also to figure out, you know, I didn't know how people wanted the 12 volt versus 5 volt version, but the next ones I won't have to worry about that. So I'm just going to whip my tip, clean it. And you'll notice that when I'm soldering this, you'll see two of these take a real long time to heat up. And that's because they're attached to the ground plane. And soldering ground planes takes a bit of time, because what happens is it sucks up all the heat. Move this further back. Move this out of the way. Clean my area. I mean, a clean work area definitely does help.
So, trying to do this so I keep you guys in frame. That's kind of my bad habit. You can always tell which one's the ground, because it takes forever to heat up.
Move this. there you have that. I'll just do the other ones. Special thanks for my wife for letting me do this. She chases around the 4-year-old. Yeah, that's the hardest job right there, being a parent.
This angle's a little better. Actually, am I blocking? Maybe. I see my face a little bit. My nerd goggles. So yeah, it's a little better.
So they do a little better job of soldering. Two more. Yeah, this might actually be my last 5-volt that I make like this, just because either they sell quickly or they slow down, but I only have a few DACs left that we can produce and sell, and it's not super easy to like there's a bit of setup that goes into when I do this. So when I set this up, I was setting up just
that amount, just quickly start this. So that's something to hold on to. Okay, there we go.
You need to get close. You need a close to stream on your round. Oh shoot. Therapy. Okay, thank you, Don. You've been started. Okay, Don said with Pro Micros, only need to make some SATA power if you patch cables. That sounds interesting.
So maybe this could be the new trend. You know, Twitch isn't doing that well. You know, just people live stream soldering. It's the most exhilarating thing. So kind of going at an angle, which I forgot to do a little bit. Helps because you get more surface area with iron touching it. You can see I'm going a little faster now.
And another thing I think I might do is the next batch I might eliminate these 90-degree headers for the addressable LEDs. So I might just go with, for instance, like this right here, because these are fine, but trying to do the Asus, you know, adapter is a little bit annoying because I can only get these in female. There's nothing I can get that's male that I could find. So what that means, I have to plug one of these manually, and also remove this, plug it, cut it. So it's a few extra steps. So I might just do that. It's doesn't add a lot of extra height, but prevents people from stacking it. And if I go with the idea of adding a physical jumper to change 5-volt to 12-volt instead of the solder jumper, that means I would have to give up that ability to stack them, which, you know, I don't think a whole lot of people use that.
The people that I think tend to use these also use bigger cases, so they can just mount it to their 5.5 inch. So clean that up a little bit. Yeah, I do like the wire brush, wire sponge. It works great. This right here. Just go in there, clean it. Better than the old-fashioned sponge. Better for the iron too. Okay, we're all done with that. I think we're done with soldering now. So turn it off. What I do is I like to really wet the tip, put a lot of tin it really well to protect it. That way I don't have to replace tips. So just put enough of this on it. Also, while I'm doing this, it helps cool it down quicker. Just put a huge gob on that. And then put the iron away. I think I'm done with this part. Get the fan. Take this board off. And you guys are going to see the most exhilarating part of this. And when I say that, there's a little sarcasm behind that. So here's a few boards that I have. So what I do is, and this is one reason why I want to go to vertical headers. I guess hopefully you guys will understand. So what I do is I take this and so is this the right one that I use? No. Oh yes, switch it up. You see. Yes, I have a pegboard, and I'm probably one of the few people on YouTube that actually uses their pegboard. I wonder how many people just, okay, put that parent away. So I don't know if it's just in frame. So, yeah, this is hard to do it in frame and in focus, I guess. It's not the most ergonomic way of doing this. So what I do is I go through and I insert these into the blank pin, and this is why I don't want to do this 90 degree, because if it came in a male header, then I could just install the male header, 90 degree male header, and then just clip off that extra tab. But the thing is, I haven't found these in male, and I only found them in female. So I'm left to do is just get the, well, I can get the male vertical ones. Let me phrase that as I blabber on. And this is kind of a critical step, because you could potentially damage something if you have the polarity reversed. So I like to double check everything. And this goes into here. So when I pull out the middle one, then I just set the other one over there. Oh yeah, you guys need to see that. And that's also a challenge, trying to keep everything in frame. You don't have somebody didn't really tell you, hey, it's out of frame or whatnot. Is the focus good? So again, I normally like to hold it up like here and do it this way, but you know, it's out of frame if I do it that way. So then I go through, and then I have I have one board left. And I mean, imagine doing like 20, 30 of these at a time, and it gets very monotonous. And the idea for the next, oops, so looks like a damaged. Toss that pin up. Toss this one away. So there's a lot of small stupid things you need to keep in mind. Like, you know, if this is just for me, if I was just making a couple for me, then this is not, you know, a huge thing. But if I want to order 100 or 400, and then it becomes horrible. And you know, I have less and less time. Seems my dog. Oops, sorry. I'm so sorry for anybody wearing headphones. My stripper just hit my microphone. So what I do is I plug up the holes in each one, and I like to kind of go through and make sure that I put them in the right spot. And kind of improve my work area by moving this out of the way. So what I like to do is kind of pull it out a little bit. Might put a little pressure on it, that way it doesn't fly across the room. So if I were to just use like a header like this, I would just solder it in place and then just come around and just go like this, instead of trying to go through and insert a little pin in each one of these. And you know, they can still kind of be pulled out a little bit. And yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I want to switch to a vertical header, because it will save me time and frustration, and you know, at least the Corsair style will be better. Always hard to show some yeah, that is true. Don just said it's hard to show stuff with a fixed camera. So yeah, I don't have a camera person that shows what I'm doing at different angles. So, and all this is obviously off the cuff as I correct things in the middle. So I kind of give it a little push in, make sure it's. Is that guy gonna go in? Okay, there, yeah. So the idea is that way people won't reverse the polarity. Like on the Corsair devices like this Lighting No Pro right here, everything is kind of gendered keyed, so you can't reverse the polarity. But the thing is, like with, you know, I guess I've seen with some motherboards, if you reverse the polarity, I know somebody did it on I think a Gigabyte Extreme, it just doesn't power on. So this will blow a fuse if you reverse the polarity, which I've done. You can do it by just using your own cables and not having. So, and yeah, you're tired, you're screwing around, you're overconfident, and that's when you screw up. So yeah, just kind of push these in. Now, because I've seen if I just don't push that in, then sometimes they can catch on this little housing and then pull out that little pin, and I don't want somebody saying, "Oh, it doesn't work. My device that I plugged it in is broken." So you know, that's kind of, I've always been kind of concerned about. You know, I don't want to design and build and sell something that potentially that could damage somebody else's. So that's why I have fuses on these. They watch me as I clean up. You know, the fuses are rated for 3 volts. Oh, okay. You know, that's the thing I did forget to do. So I'm not done with soldering yet. Oops. I forgot to apply the solder jumper. That will just take a second. And all that is, you know, that's another thing I went back and forth with. Should I do a solder jump? Like, how should I do this? And at the time I decided, okay, I don't want somebody messing up and running the wrong voltage through it and damaging their strips. You know, I try to make it idiot-proof, but then if you idiot-proof things too much, then you remove a lot of the functionality and usability out of it. And I wanted to avoid that. You know, but it's kind of give and take, I guess. So now you get to
So right here is for the solder jumper, and if you already have one of these, you can literally just switch the voltage by getting some like solder sucker, and you definitely want to check continuity between 12 and 5 volt reld after you remove the solder. Also use some where is it? It's this kind of solder wick, which is basically braided copper with flux embedded into it, so you can just remove it if you already have a DAC or just any device. You want to clean up the pad. So I'm going to remove this. So this one is a 12 volt, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put it right here. This is like ergonomics. So that looks good. Next one, this is another 12 volt. So I'll solder the 12 volt side right here, and I did label them with the, it's called screen print. Okay, that one's done. And do this one. That looks good. And last but not least, the 5 volt. Lonely guy. I think somebody wants to buy this one, so that's another reason why I did this. None of my sellers, I don't think any of my sellers have a 5 volt DAC left. That looks good. Turn it off. Yeah, taking care of your stuff makes it last longer. You can see how the closer you are, it's a lot more effective. As you can see in the, I don't know if you can see the smoke. So, Don, are you a subscriber or you just stumbled across me? Okay, so again, yeah, this is me trying to multitask. Entertain my the guy that's currently viewing my channel, or actively talking in the chat. So let's get out some of these. These are little strips that I've. Okay, so just gonna plug these all in. Some of these might not work, but I think I threw most of the ones that didn't away. That's the strip that some of them don't work. These are the ones I just threw together, and just from strain of unplugging, plugging them off. I don't have any strain relief, but when I make my own strips, I like to put a little bit of at least now I like to put a little bit of hot glue right here on it, kind of covering these, and I do a shrink wrap around it, and it's kind of cool because the shrink wrap gets really hot and then reflows the hot glue, and it makes it look really nice. Do I have any of them here? Oh, yeah, right here. So you can see it reflowed the little hot glue. This one I put a little too much, but I think that came out pretty good. So let's see how well these work. Where is it? Donde está? Okay. So I actually modified one of these connectors. I removed this little tab on the bottom so you could plug it in easier. And where are a couple strips? Okay, let me get a strip. See here. Like this, we don't need you anymore. course I use that for that. That's a little, kind of made it a little too permanent to test it in this manner. Where are you? Give me a second, sorry. Okay, I needed a cable, and I literally just made this permanent. So, whoops, line. So let's get a, where's a better cable? I think this strip is faulty now. So let's plug this in. Turn this on. So this is just going to demonstrate that the DAC is working, getting all the colors. And for the 5 volt, actually I have a funny story. These little 5 volt, these little ones that I use for also testing the 5 volt. I need to test one. It is, I got these off on, like, they're for a TV. I cut them up and used them for this instead. The idea is to do like some ambient lighting, and I needed 5 volt LEDs, and that's the best way I found it. So unplug this now. And there we have it. So everything's working, and this is also testing the fuse at the same time because my jig currently bypasses the fuse, which I think that's potentially why I had some issues the last one. So this one's working. These two. So put this back on. Last thing I want to do is accidentally fry something. So the other test would be good enough. I'm just gonna, I guess, just demonstrating that, showing proof that this actually is working fully. Because again, the other jig doesn't really test the the other jig doesn't really test the fuse, because at the time I didn't have the jumper set. I usually make a huge batch of 12 volt ones because of the ones that sell the best, and I usually solder the jumper first for 12 volt, and then just use this cable for that testing. Here's the last one. So that's usually how I do it. And my next jig is gonna be a little better. I might even actually outsource the testing. It just, again, it takes a lot of time to do these, and a kid, full-time job, yada yada. So last but not least, yep, everything still works. So if you guys have any questions, I mean, feel free to ask. Again, how long was the stream going on for? I don't know. Whoa, holy crap, an hour. I did not expect that. Definitely thank you for your patience for those guys that tuned in. But, you know, this is how I finish the boards in terms of, you know, making sure that they all work. Then I have these little, let me turn this off. The next thing I do is, once I've Q'd them properly, and actually that's not the last step, so yay, this is my next favorite part right here. is putting on, and I need to do these all, like if I don't do them now, then I'll forget, and then somebody like probably Binary will somehow get one that I forgot to put these on. Yeah, so all your DACs should come with 4 standoffs pre-installed on this version. I might just have people just include like 6 of them and let people do it themselves. Again, it's the more I handle them, the more expensive these things can get, because it's just time and effort. I'm looking at wanting to produce 100 to 400 of these. That's a lot of time, so I'm looking at maybe buying 400, because it's fascinating how much the cost of boards really scales. They first have what are called the bill of materials, like the cost of like all the components, and that scales okay with well, depending on like how much you buy, but definitely economy of scale does apply to buying a lot more components. Though if you're buying from China, you're already talking about them being pretty cheap, so a fraction of a penny that you save per some of these components by ordering a few hundred more boards or whatever. So but it is kind of interesting that the whole like producing the PCB, that's a really good way to scale the cost of production, because it's literally almost kind of like the way they make these is fascinating. They start off with a piece of, this is fiberglass in the middle, sandwiched between two layers of copper, and it's literally a process of using like almost kind of like it's a photosensitive film that they put over it, which has a negative for, I think, of your PCB design, and the film adheres to the board, and they use like acid to etch away the other areas, which then leaves you for your traces, which are the little things. And they do the same thing with the solder mask, so, and then the pads open. So they repeat different processes, and it's fascinating. But with it, you are actually if you order thousands of these, the price just plummets. But 100, it's you don't really get a huge discount on them, and that's kind of one reason why these things aren't super cheap. Like if you look at some of these controllers, that you can get for 10, $20 or whatever. I mean, they're producing thousands and thousands and thousands of them, and so they definitely can get a huge discount that way. And they're also, the person that designs them is not doing the final assembly, and that's another kind of cost over there. And the fact that I had to solder all the headers on myself, that's so there's a lot of different things. And this first round of boards, you make a little money on it, but I mean it's learning experience, and the tools that I had to invest to learn and get this far. It's I don't even know if I'm breaking even, but it's I'm doing this more of a hobby. I wanted to have it for myself, and then other people had an interest, and it's I guess vanity more than anything else. So now that I'm done with putting these on, and I tested all the boards out, what I do for kind of the last step of the boards is I put on this little if I can get this threaded on. Okay, there we go. So yeah, the next boards will probably just have the reason, as stupid as it sounds, the reason why I thread these on is because every now and then you'll get one that doesn't, like that stripped or something, and that's why I wanted to do it. But I think I'll just throw in like 6 of them, just so it'll be physically impossible to get it. So kind of the QA mark is when I put this little serial number, and as you can see, I've only assembled about it's going to be 89 by tonight, and I normally do these like 10 or 20 at a time. So let's see, Subbed a few weeks ago, bought a Corsair case and ArrRGB craziness hit me. Didn't like Corsair's pricing and found your channel while researching how RGB stuff works. Yeah, I mean, Corsair's products, I mean, they're definitely not cheap. I mean, you can easily buy bulk strips and make your own thing, make your own strips, plug them into your motherboard. But I mean, it's all about the control, and that's through the software, and that's kind of what they're charging. I mean, also they're charging. I mean, if you look at their packaging compared to what I use for packaging, I mean, it's you know, they put a bit more money in the packaging, and you know, I don't know how I feel about that. You know, I'm not like I'm not a tree hugger or anything, but I mean, you think these companies, you know, like Apple especially, which has this huge, you know, following of people, would want to have, you know, something that's a bit more, I guess, better for the environment, because the things are, you know, you wonder how much time, effort, trees that went into that. I mean, granted, I know nothing about the packaging science, but yeah, I'm just responding to Don's just to mention. So yeah, I've been happy. Now I just throw on some anti-static bags for each of them, fold some boxes. I do the boxing. I make the boxes so it comes shipped flat to me. Cut the the bubble wrap to size. Fold a piece of paper that comes with these. So I'm gonna look at probably for the next boards. I might see about trying to you know, how can I make it less work, especially if I'm looking at doing 400. But thank you very much, Don, for for interacting with me and keeping me company. That might influence me to make more of these, or at least, you know, make enough so people tune in. Feel free to check out my Discord. I do have a Twitter account that I just created. I have 0 followers, so that's, you know, how new it is. I'm not much of a Twitter person, but you know, sometimes I want to do like a shout out or say something, and you know, I don't want to set a video out, but I thought that would be kind of a good way of doing it. So again, if you have any questions, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.